Is it 616 or 666? Unraveling the number of the beast. All right. Let's dive into one of the Bible's most intriguing mysteries. Is the infamous number of the beast 666 or 616? This question has sparked debates among scholars, theologians, and curious folks for centuries, and it's not just about a number. It's about what it represents and how we interpret ancient texts. The book of Revelation, specifically Revelation 13:18, is where this number pops up, and depending on which manuscript you're reading, you might see 666 or 616. Both sides have solid arguments, backed by scripture, theology, and a bit of historical detective work. So, let's unpack this casually, look at both perspectives, and weigh the evidence, including why the oldest manuscripts aren't always the golden ticket, and why later ones, like those behind the King James Version, hold their own. First, let's talk about the 616 camp. This number comes from some of the oldest surviving manuscripts of Revelation, like Papyrus 115, P115, dated to the 3rd century, and Codex Ephraemi Rescriptus, a 5th century text. These are heavy hitters in biblical scholarship because they're closer in time to the original writing of Revelation, around 95–100 AD. The argument here is simple. Older manuscripts are less likely to have been corrupted by centuries of copying errors. Revelation 13:18 in P115 clearly reads 616, kiss in Greek numerals, and some early church fathers, like Irenaeus in the 2nd century, acknowledge this variant, though he leaned towards 6666. Theologically, 616 supporters argue it could still fit the number of the beast symbolism. In Greek gematria, where letters have numerical values, 616 might point to a specific name or title, like a variation of Nero Caesar, a popular candidate for the beast in historical context. Some Catholic and Protestant scholars, especially those who prioritize textual criticism, argue that 616 is more likely the original because it's in these ancient texts. They say later scribes might have changed it to 666 to align with other traditions, or because 666 with its triadic repetition has a more ominous, symbolic vibe. The older is better logic hinges on the idea that manuscripts closer to John's time reflect his actual words before copyists started tweaking things. Now flip the coin to the 666 side, which is the number most of us know thanks to the King James Version, KJV, and its reliance on the Textus Receptus, a Greek text compiled in the 16th century from later Byzantine manuscripts. The 666 reading dominates most medieval manuscripts, including the Codex Alexandrinus, 5th century, and the majority of the Byzantine textual tradition. Why does this matter? Well, the Textus Receptus crowd, mostly Protestant scholars and traditionalists, argues that just because a manuscript is older doesn't mean it's better. Older manuscripts like P115 are often fragmentary. P115 only has parts of Revelation, and they might have been produced by less careful scribes or in regions with less orthodox practices. The Byzantine manuscripts, while later, mostly 9th–12th centuries, represent a broader, more consistent tradition, copied and preserved by churches over centuries. Theologically, 66666 carries a punch. It's seen as a triply imperfect number, falling short of the perfect 7 Salam v7, symbolizing ultimate evil in opposition to God. Revelation 13:18 in the KJV reads, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." This has been the standard for most Protestant churches, and even some Catholic scholars lean into it because of its widespread acceptance in church history. They argue that the sheer volume of 666 manuscripts outweighs the few early 616 ones, suggesting 666 was the dominant reading in the early church. But here's the kicker. Oldest doesn't always mean best. Textual critics, whether Protestant or Catholic, point out that early manuscripts could have errors too. A scribe in the 3rd century might have misread a faded text or intentionally altered it to fit a local tradition. For example, 616 could have been a regional quirk in Egypt, where P115 was found, while 6666 was more universal elsewhere. On the flip side, the 666 camp faces the challenge that later manuscripts could reflect accumulated errors or deliberate changes to make the number more symbolically potent. Both sides agree that Revelation's context, written in a time of Roman persecution, suggests the number points to a historical figure or system, like Nero or Imperial Rome. But they differ on which number better fits the gematria puzzle. Protestant scholars, like those behind the KJV, often stick with 6666 for its theological weight and manuscript majority, while critical scholars, including some Catholics, lean toward 616 for its early attestation. So, where does this leave us? It's a bit like choosing between two ancient treasure maps. One's older but tattered, the other's newer but widely trusted. The 616 argument has the edge in age, with manuscripts like P115 giving it street cred, but it's not a slam dunk since early doesn't guarantee accuracy. The 666 side has tradition and numbers on its side, with the Textus Receptus and Byzantine manuscripts carrying the weight of centuries of church use. Theologically, both numbers can fit Revelation's apocalyptic vibe, but 6666 has a cultural and symbolic edge that's hard to shake. Whether you're Protestant, Catholic, or just a curious reader, the debate reminds us that Scripture's mysteries keep us digging, thinking, and wrestling with the text. For now, I'll let you decide which number feels more beastly. Just don't lose sleep over it.